Okay, so hello everyone, we are meeting again and I am here with a new topic of class 9th this time, that is the fundamental unit of life. And I'm sure this is not a new topic for all of you. We all have been studying about this from very earlier classes, and the very basic thing which we have been taught, that cell is the basic structural and functional unit of our lives. So basically today we are going to talk about that only. We are going to talk about the structure of a cell, we are going to talk about the function of a cell. So just let's start what we have to study today. So the question first of all arises that how the cell wall was invented. Who discovered the cell for the first time? So it was a scientist whose name was Robert Hooke, and he discovered cell in the year 1665. Basically he was working on the cork cells. Actually cork cells are the cells which are present in the bark of the tree. So he was working on those cells only, and he saw actually some little compartments or the small room like structure actually in the cork cells. And the term cell is actually a Latin word which simply means little room. So the structure which he saw in cork cells, it was resembling with little room, so he gave them the name cells. So cells are basically the Latin word which whose meaning is little rooms. So they were first of all invented by the scientist Robert Hooke in the year 1665, but gradually when the time was progressing, some new inventions were there. Electron microscope was invented, so there were some modifications in the definition as well as in the structure of the cell. And another scientist also came into existence, and they gave their information about the cell actually. So if the question comes that who invented the cell, then absolutely the answer will be Robert Hooke. It was invented by Robert Hooke for the first time in the year 1665, but gradually some changes were made, and those I have written here in the board. On the board actually. So discovered by Robert Hooke in the year 1665. Then what happened after that? Leeuwenhoek was another scientist, and with the help of electron microscope, because during his time the electron microscope was invented, so he discovered free living cells in pond water, and this was the year 1674. After that another scientist came into existence. Robert Brown was his name. He discovered nucleus. Nucleus is present inside the cell. Earlier people were not knowing about the nucleus, but gradually Robert Brown discovered nucleus in the year 1831. And after that another scientist whose name was Purkinje, he coined the term protoplasm. Protoplasm is actually the liquid material which is present inside the cell. So it was coined by the scientist Purkinje, and this was the year 1839. And what happened after that? Actually gradually people were knowing some more things about the cell. So after that cell theory came into existence, and this cell theory was given by two scientists actually, that is Schleiden and Schwann, in 1839. This was the year 1839. And after that this cell theory which was given by these two scientists, it was further expanded. Some new things were added to the theory by the scientist Virchow. It was the year 1855. So these are some contributions of the scientist in the invention of cell actually, or the modification of the cell you can say, because when Robert Hooke discovered the cell, he was having very few information about that, but gradually scientists came to find out many more things, and they added the information. So these were the contributions by the scientists. And okay, so let's come to the next topic now. So as the cells were discovered, so now the question arises that what are the things of which cell is made up of? The cell is, because as it is a structure, so it is made up of something. Yes, and how these cells are arranged into organisms. because we know that this all we are doing in class 9th, and up to now we know that we have two different types of organisms, unicellular as well as multicellular. And what happens actually in unicellular organism, a single cell is able to perform all the functions. That simply means a single cell can form a whole organism. That's the same thing which is happening in unicellular organisms. While in the case of multicellular organisms, we have many cells arranged in our bodies, and we have some more structures actually which we are going to study in detail. So basically, what is the thing that in unicellular and multicellular, in both these organisms, the cells are the basic things which are performing all the functions. In unicellular organisms, a single cell is able to perform all the functions because a single cell is making the complete organism. While in the case of multicellular organisms, we have you can say group of cells working together. So this is the difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms. And if it comes about the you can say structure of a cell, or what are the things of which the cell is made up of, so the very first thing which comes into existence is the membrane or the layer which is surrounding the cell, and this is called as the cell membrane or plasma membrane. So this is the outer covering of the cell actually, and this is called as cell membrane or plasma membrane. And what is specific about this structure? The specific thing about this is that cell membrane is semi-permeable. This cell membrane is semi-permeable in nature. Now you will ask that what is meant by semi-permeable? See, semi means half and permeable means porous. So the membrane which is half porous, it is not completely porous, it is half porous. So why this is of this nature actually? Why this is not completely porous? Because it allows the entry and exit of only selective substances. All the substances are not allowed to come inside the cell, and they are not allowed to go out of the cell also. So that is the thing, that is the function which is performed by the cell membrane. That's why it is semi-permeable in nature. So now the question arises that how the things move then. If the membrane is semi-permeable, then how the gases, solutes or water, how they go out of the cell, or how they come inside the cell. So as the cell is semi-permeable in nature, so basically the substances which have to because the cell is performing all the metabolic functions, and it has to excrete out the metabolic waste. As for example, suppose, so what is the metabolic waste? In most of the cases it is carbon dioxide. So the waste material, it has to go out of the cell. So how the carbon dioxide will move out of the cell? It will move by a specific process that is called as diffusion. Diffusion is basically the process of movement of gases and solutes from its higher concentration to lower concentration of the cell. Now see here, when the cell is performing all the metabolic functions and it has gathered metabolic waste, so the concentration of carbon dioxide become high inside the cell and its concentration becomes less outside the cell. So here becomes a concentration gradient. CO2 is high in and it is low out. So how it will move? From higher concentration to lower concentration. That means from inside the cell it will go out of the cell. So as for examples, suppose CO2 is here inside the cell actually, and it has to go out of the cell. So how it will move out? As its concentration is high in and its concentration is low outside. So from high concentration to low concentration, the carbon dioxide will move, and this is the process which is called as diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of gases from their high concentration to low concentration, and basically not only the movement of gases, it is the movement of gases as well as solutes from its higher concentration to its lower concentration. This also involves the movement of water, but we have a specific term, specific name in the case of water actually, and that is osmosis. Osmosis is also a type of diffusion, but in the case of osmosis we basically talk about the movement of water, while in the case of diffusion we talk about the gases as well as solutes. While in the case of osmosis we generally talk about the movement of water. So this is basically the property of semi-permeable membrane. It is allowing only selective substances to go inside the cell or to come out of the cell. That's why the cell membrane is the outer covering of the cell, or basically it is protecting the cell also, or it is deciding that which substance will enter inside or which substance will go out of the cell. Or if we talk about the permeability of the cell membrane, so you can understand it with another example, that what is meant by semi-permeable membrane. I am giving you a very simple example here. Suppose in a beaker we have taken a beaker and we have divided this into two equal parts, okay, and this partition or the membrane which is dividing the two parts, this is semi-permeable membrane. Suppose this membrane is semi-permeable, okay, and we have taken equal amount of solvent both sides, and suppose we have taken 1 liter water. In both the parts we have taken 1 liter of water, but here in this area we have taken 2 spoons salt also. Okay, so this is the main difference between these two parts. Here we have taken only water, plain water is here, while in this part we have taken 2 spoons salts. Okay, now just think here that what would be the concentration of water, or where the concentration of water will be high or where it will be low. So basically see, the amount or quantity of water is actually same, it is equal in both sides, but here we have taken some solutes also, and in this case the solute is salt. Solute is the thing which is getting mixed in the solvent. So we have taken one solute here, that is salt in this case. So what is happening actually, the concentration of salt is high here, and this salt is working as a solute, so you can say solute concentration is high here in this area and solute concentration is low in this area. And if we talk about the concentration of water, then here the water is also having solute and here we have plain water, so that's why the concentration of water is high here and the concentration of water is low here. So how the substances, how the water and how the solute will move here? So as we know, with the help of definitions, with the help of diffusion or with the help of definition of osmosis, we know that water will move from its high concentration to low concentration. That means from this part to this part water will come. Suppose if I am using this green marker to show the movement of water, so water is coming here in this part and the solutes, they are going in this area. So this is basically showing the function of this semi-permeable membrane. These things are happening because these two solutions are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. And one more very important thing I would like to tell you here, that if we talk about the concentration of solutes, the concentration of water in a solution, so we have basically three different types of solutions that can be present around a cell, and these three different types are hypertonic, or basically we are talking about the types of solution. So it can be hypertonic, it can be isotonic, or it can be hypotonic. Okay, so the name itself is telling you hyper, iso and hypo. Hyper means high, more, iso means equal, and hypo means less. So basically what is happening in these three different types of solutions, suppose if our cell is present here, this is the cell, and it is surrounded by a solution which is more dense, or basically if it is having more solutes as compared to the cell, then it will be considered as hypertonic. It will be considered as hypertonic solution because it is more dense than the cell. Dense means you can say amount of solute which is present here in the outside environment of the cell, or outer environment of the cell. Actually it is having more solutes as compared to the cell. But here in the isotonic solution, when we talk about, the cell is surrounded by a solution which is having almost equal concentration of each and everything. That means solute as well as water also. The concentration of solute inside the cell, the concentration of solute outside the cell, as well as the concentration of water also, they both are equal in and out in both the cases. While in the case of hypotonic solution, the cell is surrounded by the solution which is having more concentration of water. That's why this solution, the solution which is present out of the cell, it is hypotonic. So what will happen in the case of hypotonic solution? Actually the water will tend to get inside, because this is hypotonic, this is having more concentration of water, so water will tend to move from its higher concentration to lower concentration, so it will move inside the cell. While in the case of hypertonic solution, water will tend to come out of the cell. So in this case the cell will swell, there will be swelling inside the cell, while in this case the cell will shrink. The cell will tend to decrease its size, and there will be no change in the case of isotonic solutions. So these are three different types of solutions which you have to understand when you are going to study about the structure of the cell or functioning of the cell, actually, because these things we are going to discuss again and again in this chapter. So I think up to here your concepts are clear. The next topics which are in your chapter, that we will be discussing in the next part of the video. Thank you for watching everyone.